the online streaming?
Yeah, I think we're ready. It should be coming up in the next couple of minutes.
All right. Thank you.
Now there's going to be a delay, so those of you who are trying to anxiously watch this.
Oh, we don't see any stuff.
So those of you who are watching the live stream in an attempt to see yourself on YouTube, I wouldn't, because there's going to be a significant delay between what we're doing live and what actually gets broadcast. So I have a feeling we'll be able to monitor. Oh, it says there are 14 people waiting on it, so that's great. So we have at least some people who are anxiously awaiting what we're going to do. I will greet everybody, and then everybody can introduce themselves so that you can know what's going on between what we're doing live and what actually gets broadcast.
The stream is there's like a minute delay, but
I feel like we'll be able to monitor. Oh, it says there are 14 people waiting on it, so that's great. So whoever's monitoring this now probably wants to turn their volume down so that we don't all get it across the team meeting.
Okay.
19 waiting. Okay, a bunch of people who are ready.
Or a good idea might be to mute your microphone when you're not speaking and then unmute it when you plan on talking. I know that'll cause a little bit of a hiccup, but that way we don't accidentally pick up somebody's video if they're listening to the streaming as well.
Well, I think sure, that works too, but the idea would be don't listen to the streaming, right? That would be the easiest thing to do, I think. As a matter of fact, I'm going to turn my volume down now. I'm going to presume we're live, Kyle. I don't see anything on the screen yet, but obviously we'll probably get a delay and it will eventually come through, do you think?
Try going to ndsu.edu/music/stream again and see if that refreshes it.
Okay. That seemed to do that. I just refreshed my screen. All right. Well, welcome everybody. There are 5 watching now, apparently. 6. And there were 19 waiting a minute ago, so there may be more as we join it. But to introduce, this is, well, Amanda, why don't you introduce what we're doing to everybody who's both watching on the stream and to the Stuco members who are involved, please.
All right. Yes, absolutely. So good morning, everybody. As you probably know by now, we are doing online instruction, and I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of questions and concerns. And also, we just kind of want to hear from you about how your spring break was. So our goal today is to hopefully ease some of this transition to online instruction and connect with your peers to understand a little bit more about what's going on in your minds as we make this shift into online mode. So it's been really great to kind of connect with some of you already, and we look forward to hearing some more questions. If you have any more questions and you're streaming this live, I am monitoring our Google response sheet. So if any more questions come in, we'll make sure that we answer them and address them accordingly. So otherwise, I think it'd be great to hear from all of the students to see what you guys did on spring break if you got to actually leave your house. So if anybody has anything fun they would like to share, we can kind of start out with that.
Rebecca can show us all her new furniture. Come on, somebody pile in.
All with my nothing. It's a good time. Are you guys all still in Fargo, or did you guys go home to see mom and dad, family? I'm in Minot. Minot? I'm still here in Fargo.
I'm back home in New Rockford.
Yeah, it was safer for me to stay in Fargo than go to the Twin Cities, so I'm here for the rest of the semester. Yep.
Now, are you in an apartment suite or are you in a dorm?
Yeah, I'm in my own apartment, so I've been self-isolating all week.
Yeah, I imagine. Okay. Anybody else? Interesting stories? Rebecca, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think your story is a great one. Mind sharing it?
Sure. So Calder, as many of you know, was supposed to move to Fargo this week. He was supposed to hit terminal leave on Friday and be separating from the Air Force. But with the whole virus situation going on, the Air Force decided that no airmen are allowed outside of a 45-mile radius of the base, including those who were supposed to be on terminal leave. So we're stuck here, but we're supposed to be out of our apartment by the end of the month. So we gave all of our furniture away to friends and family, and they rented out our apartment to somebody else. So we get to go move in with Calder's dad for a few months because they're keeping him until May now. So it'll be a good time moving back in with the parents, I guess. So yep. So we got no furniture currently. My desk is a chair. It's a beautiful chair. As you can see, I have my one flimsy wire stand behind me. My clarinet next to me. This is my office space now.
Easiest move ever.
Send pizza and care packages to Rebecca. Anybody else want to weigh in about your stories, about what's going on?
I do. I've started baking, so I have started learning how to rise yeast. If you wait 1 second, I am currently rising pizza dough. Yay! So I'm trying to pick up a new hobby over this isolation period, and I'm fortunate that Taylor's with me, so it's kind of less lonely than it could be. But yeah, good times.
Anybody else?
Lauren, if you want to try your hand at sourdough, I could bring over a sample of my sourdough starter and leave it. We'd have no contact. You could sterilize the whole outside of the jar.
Yeah, that sounds like a blast. I would love to try that.
Okay, well, let's get down to business. Why don't we? Let me start by talking about what the university overall has now mandated. And this would be, I think now, 10 of the 11 public institutions in North Dakota have mandated that the online method of instruction is going to continue until the end of the semester. I think there's one that hasn't, but NDSU was one of the last ones to do that because I think that the president was hoping against hope that we might get some good news and we might be able to not make that decision as far as the whole rest of the semester, but they've now done that. So you can expect that basically all the classwork that you're going to be doing that can be logically delivered online is going to be so. So the first order of business that I would suggest everybody does is make sure that you're in contact with all of your professors having to do with all of your classes to see what those plans are. We have all been working for the last week and a half, ever since this looked like it was going to become reality, to develop materials and develop procedures. And I've asked all faculty members to give me a synopsis of what they are doing for each of the things that they are assigned primary responsibility for. And everybody has responded, and everybody is going to be trying to make this work as best we can. We also have a faculty meeting this afternoon, virtually, meeting this way, at 2 o'clock, in which we are going to be discussing a whole page of procedures and how things are going to work. So some of the things that we talk about today, I will be able to answer or address immediately because decisions have already been made either at the university level or the division level or the School of Music level as far as what these are going to be. Others of them are still kind of sticky and up in the air, and we're not exactly sure what we're going to do. And that's going to be based upon some additional faculty and staff input from this meeting this afternoon. But what I can assure you is that everybody is in contact. Everybody is working on all the things that are of concern to you as well as to us. And we will disseminate all this information as soon as we are able, both through the Music Folks listserv and for individuals and for maybe ongoing meetings like this. So everybody's in the same boat, and everybody's looking at this as an opportunity to get a little bit more hyped on technology than some of us had anticipated doing. And we know that some things are going to go swimmingly, and we know that some things are going to be impossible across this kind of platform, and some things are going to have to be modified across the platform. So we're all committed to doing that, and we're all committed to trying to make sure that that journey is as easy as possible for all of you. Other staff members or faculty members want to pitch into that. What have I missed from a 30,000 foot level at this point?
All good.
Yep, I think we're in good shape.
Okay. Well, maybe the easiest thing to do is this. Let me go through the list of questions that we've gotten so far in the Google Doc, and I'm going to pick out certain ones that are real easy to answer, and then maybe we'll give you all an opportunity to weigh in with some other kinds of questions, and then we'll go back to the list of the things that are a little bit more dicey to answer, and then we'll wrap up after that. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
We now have 30 people online watching the stream, which is kind of cool. All right, so the questions that are going to be easy to answer are, well, let me start with this. What we've been asked to do by the university and how we're going to handle things like building access and things that involve performances or teaching or recitals and things like this are easy with the blanket statement that the university thinks it's safest if we don't have people together. So that has a lot to deal with the trappings of the questions that are naturally going to result. So does that mean that the building doors are going to basically be locked? And the answer is yes. Will you be able to get in as students in emergency situations to grab things and do things? Of course you can, because your card swipes are going to open the building. But nevertheless, the lounge is going to be closed. We don't want people congregating or gathering. There's going to be no instruction of any kind that involves putting a faculty member together with another faculty member or with a student or a staff person with a student or a student with a student with respect to doing things like rehearsing for recitals and things like that. So if you take the blanket overview that we're not having people together, that answers a lot of questions from a 30,000 foot view. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah.
So, easy questions here. What will we be doing for performance attendance? That's from Taylor Crew. But Lauren probably put him up to that question. No? Okay. Performance attendance, I expect, will totally go away. There aren't going to be requirements for performance attendance that look anything like what we've been led to do with respect to those requirements. However, what we're going to talk about this afternoon in faculty meeting may be some activities that are going to be recommended by the individual areas that have to do with things like maybe listening to some of the online concert hall things at the Berlin Phil, which is free these days. Maybe doing things like listening to some of the broadcasts from the Met, which are free these days, things like this. So there may be some expectations, but there certainly are not going to be any expectations with respect to concert attendance, performance attendance activities as we now understand them. Okay? Thomas asks, is there a list of do's and don'ts that will be discussed in the staff meeting, meaning probably the faculty meeting later today? And what are those? And can we expect solid solutions to those today or at a later date? Well, rather than to go through the entire list of faculty meeting agenda items that I have today, what I can say is that we're basically discussing everything having to do with facilities, with grading, with online format courses, with academic classes, with applied lessons, with accompaniment options, with juries, with studio classes, with class piano things, with methods classes, with what we're doing after the spring and the summer, with recitals, with graduate exams and things like that. So all those things are going to be on the docket that we're going to try to develop very clear policies that accommodate the idea that people aren't around, and we don't want people being together around to do that. So that's the short answer of the list of dues and the list of procedures that are going to go on later today, which we'll go through in faculty meeting. Molly has decided that there's a rabbit outside, I think. The situation getting into the building, is there any way for students to continue to use practice rooms, lounge, etc.? I'm afraid the answer to that is no. The only access that's going to be allowed to the building with respect to practice facilities and things like that are going to be for things like our international grad students in piano, who really have no other way to do any kind of practicing. They have keys to the specialized rooms, and they have things like card swipe access, so they can maintain an absolutely independent idea of being able to come in and do that. There's also the question that they will likely, and this is advance notice of something we're going to talk about today in faculty meeting, we're probably going to have some kind of arrangement, or we're going to discuss the possibility of some kind of arrangement that some of the collaborative pianists may be doing things like recording your voice people's accompaniments and things like this and uploading them for you to be practicing and things like that. So that's pretty much the limit of the facilities that are going to be available.
Dr. Miller, what about percussion studios?
And there are, Dr. Johnson has said that there are 2 percussionists who have abject need of percussion things and who have keys to the percussion rooms, and those people will be in there. So what we're trying to do is accommodate necessary and mandatory things that some students are able to do who have access, who otherwise would have no opportunity to do what they're doing. But again, it can't be collaborative. It has to be pretty much single. We were even considering, before I got the arm twisting ability to have that kind of access, we were considering having some of the percussion equipment be able to be moved into Seth and Ryan's apartments and things like that. But we got calls from the neighbor that they wouldn't like that. So.
Okay.
There's more questions that have come in since then. But let me stop at this point and have some of you all give some. I don't want to be talking through this whole thing. Let's have you be talking and or asking some questions and doing some things, and I can also come back to some of these other questions that are here for later too.
With respect to ensembles, is that just unfortunately nixed for the rest of the semester?
I think that there isn't any way to get people together to actually make music in the same room, obviously, because of the distancing things. And I think that the technology is not yet advanced enough to get rid of latency effects of trying to perform simultaneously online. So I think that Eric Whitaker's piece that he did required a grant of hundreds of thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours of editing in order to be able to actually put together that virtual choir. So I don't think we're quite there yet. There are some Dr. Weber will talk in a minute about what he's planning on doing with concert choir, for example. But I know that that Dr. Olford has given me an outline of some of the things that he's going to want to be doing with with some supplementary kinds of activities, perhaps for things like wind symphony that obviously don't involve the actual process of music making. Dr. Weber, maybe you can talk about what you're planning on for concert choir.
Well, no, I've sent all of the rehearsal tapes for the stuff that we were going to do online. They're all posted. Some of you should have your scores with you. It would be basically listening, learning your part. Yes, there's the Mozart.
Are we doing it in the fall?
That is under discussion because there are other things that are happening in the fall that I don't know that we're going to have time to do it right away in the fall. Fissinger's celebration in October in honor of the 100th anniversary. And as you know, Fissinger music is not easy. So I don't know that we can do that. And next spring, we're supposed to sing with the symphony. You know, supposed to. So we'll see how that all goes. The only place that it might, well, I don't know if it's going to work anywhere. We're just going to have to kind of go with the flow. But as of right now, the music, the Bach and the Mozart are posted. You're supposed to listen kind of things, and then we'll just go from there.
So
Because like Dr. Miller said, we can't come together in any way, shape, or form.
So we're just not going to have a recording of the singer then either.
We cannot come together in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
No one's more sad about this than I am, that we can't record. I don't like recording.
I should point out too that a lot of the things that we're talking about and going to be talking about in faculty meeting today are based upon what Bill's and Dr. Weber's and my contact is with national listservs. We're constantly in contact with people who are our opposite numbers at other institutions and trying to develop best practices. So we're not doing this on a wildcat thing. It seems like everybody is pretty much conforming to some general kinds of things that are happening nationally as far as things like that. So I'll use, for example, the idea of juries, which also is on the list of questions of what's going on here. Juries nationally are being handled by one of only a few things. They're either not being done at all, juries are just out the window totally, or there is a remote jury from the instructor doing a virtual thing and listening that may be a recorded accompaniment track, or it may be just without accompaniment at all, or they're also dealing with juries by a jury committee doing the same thing, listening to people either perform or upload a performance that they've done, or with or without accompaniment. So it's being very loose, and those are the things we're considering in something like that. And this is, again, what's being discussed nationally by people who are in the same situation as we are, trying to find reasonable solutions. So that's going to be discussed at the faculty meeting this afternoon. And using that as an example, as soon as I can get all this written up after we discuss all these things, I'll publish all this stuff to music folks and say, okay, here's what we've decided to do at NDSU and things like that. But don't be afraid to weigh in on some of those things, and don't be afraid to contact your own instructors and point out some things that may not be clear to you. For example, we were talking about ensembles just a minute ago, and there's a reaction here that says information about Wind Symphony, the email sent by Dr. O was a bit confusing. I can pass that along to him about that and Wind Symphony, but it may be wise for you all, he's very responsive to emails, as you know, to just ask him directly, well, what does this mean? Or what does this mean that you're going to ask us to do and things? Anything that has to do directly and specifically with a particular course or requirement like that, get to your instructor and ask them this question.
I have a question that was just texted to me about accompanist fees. Like, since we're not getting them for the second half of the semester, if we're getting partial refund or with all of our fees? Just kind of curious about that kind of stuff.
I think I can immediately respond that nobody wants anybody to be penalized with this, and yet at the same time, somebody's going to have to be penalized, or it's going to have to be shared one way or another. I mean, there's no way out of it unless we were to talk our North Dakota legislators into doing something like freeing up some of that $6 billion that they've got buried in the backyard in the legacy fund, and doing some support of higher ed with it. Now, if that is the case, and we actually do get some financial support from an external source, I don't see it coming directly to the university or from the university, because the university is going to be taking some big financial hits with this, I think. I'm sorry, I've got a real complex sentence going here. What I mean to say is that if we can get some outside support, like from the legislature, then we're going to be distributing that. There's nobody who's interested in making any money from this, obviously. At the same time, if we were to be looking at current resources and looking at things like, for example, accompanist fees, well, okay, so what we don't want to do is to go to our accompanists and say, give back that money, because obviously that disenfranchises or hurts them. At the same time, what we're going to be doing is asking them as well to do things like, for the next few weeks, to be doing things like reporting and preparing accompaniments for you all. So in a way, they're still working and they're still learning what they're going to be doing, and you'll have that beneficiary of it. At the same time, if that's not something that you're making use of at all, then sure, we're going to entertain some kind of refunds on things like that. So the best I can do at this point is to say that we will want to try to be fair all the way around and try to spread the pain. And in the meantime, call your legislature and say, hey, you've got a bunch of money there. How about helping out higher ed?
Cool.
Okay for now, Lauren?
Yeah, no, that's great.
Okay.
Dr. Weber, Dr. Miller, I also have a question that was just asked to me. Recitals are going to be talked about at the faculty meeting later today. That was discussed, but if students don't want to give a recital in an empty hall, is it possible that they can be postponed just to the fall semester?
Yeah, let me read my outline about recitals. Some of the options that we're going to be looking at are, and this doesn't necessarily have to be universal, that it's a legislated thing that everybody conforms to. There may be some individual student exceptions or something like this. But what's being looked at is, for graduating students, for example, that's going to be trickier because they're going to be graduating, and yet there's this recital requirement. Well, we could look at waiving the performance entirely and going by the idea of what the instructor has done to date. We could have the grade be the preparation and offer a later opportunity to do it anyway in the recital. We could grade it by the preparation, or it could be a submitted video, which could be unaccompanied or pre-recorded. There could be incompletes involved. In other words, we're trying to look at all the different options that are going to affect individuals. In response to Matt Winarski's question about a conducting recital, or Anthony Graham's recital, which is a conducting recital, which is bringing a whole bunch of people together, I'm afraid there's just no way that that's going to happen. So what we're going to have to do is either have those things be postponed, or Dr. Miller is talking to Anthony about performing that recital, a lecture recital, for example, in an empty hall, with the lecture, and then playing pre-recorded examples of it in order to satisfy the lecture portion of it. We're trying to be creative as to how to make these things work. But that's the best I can do right now. But it may be waived, it may be postponed. You should weigh in with your instructor if you are giving a recital as to what kinds of things you would prefer to do under the circumstance, if that has to do with postponement. If it's somebody who's graduating and still wants to do a recital later and be graded on the basis of the preparation they've done so far, I think that's fine, and we'll be happy to sponsor a recital later as well too. Dave Huber is checking in. Everybody.
Hi.
Hello, Dave.
I think he was inadvertently typing and it brought him to the room.
Like you're producing the next episode of Star Wars there, Dave.
It's a mood thing. Gotta have
Watch
mood.
Thrones.
Can you tell we've been busy too?
For returning student scholarships, how are we going to redo auditions, or are you just gonna remember how we sang earlier in the semester and count that as the audition? Same with instrumental area, of course.
That was a new one. I had not thought of that, and so I put that on the list to be added to the list of things that the faculty talk about this afternoon. I frankly I haven't talked about that with anybody yet at this point.
And Dr. Miller, that'll be the same with the Presser Scholarship, correct? That'll be a...
Yeah, I don't see why we can't do the presser, because when I reviewed, you asked that question the other day, Sweet, and that's good. When we do the presser, what we do is put out a call for somebody to submit some materials and submit some transcripts, and I think all that material is still available to people. So I see no reason why we won't be offering that and have a call for that scholarship application. And I guess that's going to be soon, obviously during April.
How are grad
We won't
comps?
say it's due at 3:00 today or anything. We'll give you time to worry about it.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Sorry.
How are the grad comps gonna work? For those like Kate and Katie, and how does that work?
That's going to be pretty easy, because the written ones can be done on the honor system, or they can be monitored with somebody writing their exams with their iPhone sitting there, and they're doing it. The orals can be by committee, and that can be interactive too. I do have some procedures for that to suggest to the faculty this afternoon, but I don't see that one as a major issue. I'm going to go back to the list if nobody is coming in. Is breathing gym required for band? I don't know. What happens if we were giving a recital? We talked about the recitals a bit. Our chamber ensemble is going to have assignments like Wind Symphony. Those are all questions, I think, for your individual instructors. I don't want to have to make a policy about that, or have us develop a one-size-fits-all policy about that. I do know that Connor Challey, in an effort to engage in some getting people together as best we can, is planning on doing some sessions for Breathing Gym, and I know that Seth has talked about that as well too. Do you have any updates on that, Amanda or Maggie? Weren't the two of you working with Connor to try to set something like that up?
Yeah, Connor is going to be putting some stuff together. We're kind of using today's Coffee and Connections as a kind of proof of concept of how the meeting together and streaming is going to go. And then I think he'll be setting up maybe a schedule in conjunction with maybe other programming we're provided. He also wanted people to know that there's quite a bit of pre-recorded videos with both Sam and Pat that students can look into, well, anybody can look into, for off days when he might not be doing Breathing Gym, but people still want to make it part of their day.
Seth is also doing it 3 times a day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I believe. He sent us an email, or at least he sent the Wind Symphony folks an email.
Can you forward that email to music folks? Because those of us who are in choir, I think, might want to participate in that too.
Got it.
Or, Rebecca, you could just forward that to music folks.
Maggie, are you on that?
On Music Folks?
Or
Yep.
Amanda?
I think Rebecca's
Whatever
going to
they're asking.
I think Rebecca said she was going to forward it to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
We talked about performance attendance. Amanda, why don't you weigh in and remind people who are watching? We've got 38 people watching right now, so it's a healthy segment. If they are unaware by chance of how they can submit a question,
Yes.
deal with, why don't you remind people of that?
So there's really two ways that you can send a question to us. If you are logged on to the YouTube live stream, there's actually kind of a nice little chat going on the right-hand side. So if you have a YouTube account, you can actually, I've been keeping an eye on it, and I know that Kyle probably is too. You can just insert your question there, or otherwise on that Google form that I sent this morning to Music Folks, there is a way to enter any questions or concerns that you have. And see, right now I see that Seth Schaefer is confirming that he's going to figure out a way to make it more accessible for everyone to do Breathing Gym with him, which is great. Thank you, Seth. So yeah, if anybody has questions, please submit them in. I know there's some things that we probably are forgetting or concerns on your mind.
I'm going to go back to the list what we have now. How will we conduct piano proficiencies? I've been in contact with Amy Mercer about this specifically, and I know that she has met with Ishu and Wei to talk about this. I'm going to find her email to me right now, if I can, and I will read you what she is saying about that. Wouldn't you know, I can't do that right now.
And it looks like Connor Talley is going to send out more information for Monday, Wednesday, Friday for the Breathing Gym. So stay tuned.
All right. Amy Mercer writes, for class piano, for the students who have access to a piano, we will continue to go through the course schedule with some adjustments. Ishu and Wei will work with each student via Skype or Zoom or the like, setting up weekly sessions. For the students who do not have access to a piano, teaching videos going through all the concepts that they need to be working on that I will upload to YouTube and have questions that they need to answer via email. She says, I'm not sure quite yet how to handle proficiencies. For those who have access to a piano, we certainly could do those with video conferencing. For those without, I'm not sure. I'm guessing we need to either have everyone do them at the end of the semester or have everyone wait until the fall. And she asks for my thoughts. We'll talk about that, in fact, in the meeting today. But that's at least from the horse's mouth, so to speak, on that. I also asked her about, we've been talking about the Music Academy and have decided that, like the university, we don't want to encourage, well, as a matter of fact, we want to prohibit face-to-face teaching in the Music Academy and to allow people to do that online or do it the way we're doing applied lessons. And apparently she's had good success in meeting with parents and students over there in terms of making that happen. So that's the answer about piano proficiencies and the academy, because some of you I know teach for the academy, and that's presumably she has been or will be in touch.
What about for hosts? Are hosting hours just going to be nixed then, since there's going to be...
Right, yeah, because we won't be going into that building. Technically, it's probably Peace's call as to whether or not that could continue, but I just think that the way things are going, it's best practices that we'll just not do that.
Okay.
Anybody have any ideas about Alex's comment about him says, where are the students going to procrastinate and make jokes with each other?
Create group chats with your friends and talk to them there. That's my best.
Yeah, because they can't meet in the lounge, so Alex must need some social interaction, right?
Well, yeah, this idea came from, we had theory class this morning, and he asked us at the end if we could find a way to make a pseudo lounge with Zoom. So that might be a thing that maybe he has to set up, and then could just invite someone or send the link to Music Folks. I don't really know. I think the max in a Zoom thing is 100, maybe. So that could be a pretty simple thing that maybe he could set up.
You could post on the NDSU Student Council page maybe and just be like, hey, today at noon, come hang out with us all on Zoom or whatever. That could be fun.
And I believe that with Zoom, if you don't have a premium account, your meetings can only be up to 40 minutes long.
Right. Oh, no.
Matter, but open a new meeting, I guess.
I think if you have 3 or fewer people, they can be longer. But if they are 4 or more, then you're limited to 40 minutes.
Isn't that long enough?
Apparently not.
Well, probably not if you're procrastinating.
Sam Sharp just posted, I just want to confirm that practicing in the music building is not allowed anymore, correct?
Except those special cases that I mentioned.
Perfect.
And am I right in guessing that students can still check the COVID-19 update page that's on that link that on the new webpage that's always going to have the latest information, right?
That is, and that's really important. Well, what we'll try to do is to give you updates and timely information in 2 ways. One will be through what Maggie is just talking about now. If you go to any of the performing arts pages, there'll be a banner across the top that will have in the upper left-hand corner, it'll have a little exclamation point and warning sign and a button that says Performing Arts Updates. And if you click that, we will try to daily, if there's news, keep that updated with whatever the latest procedure or policy things are that will affect you all. And as a matter of fact, Amanda just updated that late last night with the information about the building closure and the university policies and things like that. So that should be always updated if we can count on Amanda to get up at 3 a.m. and do that. But the other way to do it is that if there's an important set of policies or something, we will feed that out. We'll move that out through Music Folks. So what I would do would be to watch your email for Music Folks updates and watch that web page that will be at the button of which will be at the top of every performing arts page to link to updated information. How's that?
Great.
I'm looking at the list of submitted questions from the Google Forms thing, and I think we've addressed everything there. What are some of your other thoughts, including how useful this exercise was and whether or not we should do it ad hoc every once in a while, whether we should see whether or not it should be a continuing, ongoing thing? What are your thoughts?
I do have one question. What about the returning of instruments that were not ours to begin with? How is that? And like the locker situation, I know typically at the end of the year we have to clear out our lockers every year. Is that just going to be?
No. Good question, and I do have an answer for you for that. I think we did that on that update that we posted last night. As a matter of fact, what we're hoping is this: we're hoping that, well, let's put it this way: you all have card swipe access to the building, all the students, all the faculty, all the staff. So that means that technically you can come into the building whenever you want. We, of course, are discouraging what's the opposite of social distancing? Social closeness. We're discouraging social closeness, so we don't want you to come into the building and go up to the lounge and interact. I mean, that's obviously what we're trying to avoid. But we're suggesting that if you can, sometime during the course of this week, you take 15 minutes and you come into the building and you go up and you take the stuff that you need out of your locker. You're welcome to leave it in there if you want to. I mean, nobody's going to kick it out or throw it away or anything like that. But to come in and get the things you need. What we don't want you to do is to come in and come in twice a day for the next 3 weeks and just spend 15 minutes and go to your locker and change something out. I mean, obviously we want to try to avoid having that kind of thing. So it'll be open for you to do that. Instruments. I talked to Sigurd this morning, and he is making arrangements for people to come in and get their own instruments out of the instrumental lockers and things like this. We want to have access for you to do that. We just want you to do it efficiently and cleanly and quickly, obviously. But the timeline is open for that. We recommend that you do it this week, but if you want to have it go beyond this week, that's okay too, as long as you follow those procedures. We put tubs of wipes around the building. You've got those hand cleaner things that are in the hallways. The wipes, there are 2 on the computer desks. There's one that I put yesterday in the student lounge on the table by the counter. So what we recommend you doing is, if you come in and there is any reason for you to think that your contra bassoon needs wiping down before you take it out and take it home, do that, please. So just do safe procedures when you come into the building, and I wouldn't go sliding up and down the banisters in the building, because there are a lot of people who are using the banisters, and just kind of be sensible about it. Come in within a week, spend 15 minutes in the building, get your stuff out of the lockers and go away. The reality of the thing is that obviously you have access, so just be judicious in how you do that.
And then for instruments that we're renting, like for lab band or whatever it is, do we just leave it in our locker and let Connor Challey know that we're not using it again for the rest of the semester? Would that be the best course of action?
I'm thinking this through right now. That could be something that we talk about this afternoon as to best practices and sanitary practices. But I would say that would be the good thing. If they're in their lockers now, what would you do? Come in, take it, and personally hand it to him otherwise? I don't know. But as long as you just notify Connor maybe that you have this trumpet and it's in this locker, and help yourself when we decide to organize and wipe them down or do something like that, that would probably be most useful. Does that make sense to everybody?
I just got a report that Margaret said this was really helpful. So this has been, but could we do another one after you guys had your faculty meeting today and kind of get some updates on the things that you are going to, like scholarships and stuff, just so that it's all in one area, not like we get 100 emails, Maybe, please.
Oh, sure. We can do this as often as it's useful. This is all these procedures that we're going through are focused on one thing, and that's having everybody be safe and having everybody be informed, right? So yeah, we can do this as often as you want as far as the session. Would it be useful to put out an email with the important points that came from it and schedule another one of these in a day or two? Is that what you want to try to do, and see how many people show up for it?
That'd be great, yeah. Maybe Wednesday, same time, same place, if that would work.
Got some reactions? How about people writing in who are looking online? How about if they write in that little chat thing and decide that that's an idea, or maybe you all have some people who are emailing you or messaging you too, right?
Yep. Although we've been able to answer a lot of the questions within ourselves for the clarinet studio, at least. So.
Okay. I'm kind of tired of talking. How about other staff people with ideas or things that are in your wheelhouses that aren't in mine.
Go ahead, Tracy.
Okay, I just wanted to say that if anybody needs anything from me, I have my office phone forwarded to my cell phone, so you can either just call my office phone or you can call or email me, whatever. But I'm available, whatever you guys need from me financially, or anything that way. So.
Speaking of finances, I don't know whether any of you are in a situation where you need a reasonably small emergency loan of any kind, but we maintain a small slush fund in the office for people who get incredible cravings for Dixie cups or something and have to run to the store and get some immediately and have no change in their pocket. So why don't you talk to Tracy if you get into a situation that is problematic and need a small loan as well. That goes for any staff person.
Dr. Miller, I just wanted to say, I think I'm speaking for all students when I'm saying this, but you guys have been so incredibly supportive and helpful and just caring when it comes to this entire transition. And I've heard from multiple students, myself among them, who are just so grateful that we have you guys by our side and that you're working with us through this transition, because we realize this is not easy or fun per se, but we're working through it, and I just want to say thank you on behalf of the students. So thank you to all of the faculty and all the staff and the rest of the students for being so cooperative and helpful and supportive. And we'll get through this. It's just going to be different.
It's really nice of you to say, sweet. The only comment that I would have on that is that we have a natural advantage in performing arts, because almost everything we do is based around the idea of family and community. And I think we have that advantage over almost every other major on campus. And that's what happens when we develop those kinds of families and communities, is that we have this kind of feeling about doing that. And you're right, we're all in this together, and we'll get through it. And somehow I think we'll even be stronger as a result. So, do we have any people weighing in yet about the idea of having another one of these on Wednesday at the same time?
Yeah, everyone is very positive. I'm looking at the YouTube right now. They're all very, very good feedback. Some people are saying we could do this like once a week on Fridays, kind of replace Convo. Maybe just a quick thing to, once a week.
That's a time that everybody's used to reserving.
Yeah. That's what people are saying, at least.
Do you want to postpone the one we're doing now until Friday in lieu, or in addition to email, or do you want to have another one on Wednesday?
Friday actually might be good because we could kind of process things for a couple days.
Same here.
Since there's so much time, there could be more, results would reveal themselves by the end of the week. So I don't know how things are going with the rest of the university, but yeah.
And then there actually is a couple questions about returning music for like wind symphony and concert choir and stuff. Should we deal with that in the fall, or do we want to? Yeah, for graduating, graduating kids, people, and just kind of something to think about.
I would say if you can, try to get it to somebody else within their section, at least for like wind symphony folks, because we all took our music home because we were told that, we were going to be doing things like recording our parts and things like that. And so a lot of us have our music with us, and not everyone is in Fargo anymore. So I would say if you can, just try to get, if you're graduating, try to get it to somebody else within your section. And if you're not, just hang on to it for the time being. Because we still have our wind symphony folders and everything, so just try to keep it all together, and we'll get it back when we all get back together again.
And I can bring that. I'm writing a list of things to address at the faculty meeting this afternoon. I'll put that one on there too.
Great.
Anything else from anybody? Did we kind of by consensus decide Friday at 2?
Yeah,
Is
I think that's a good plan.
our understanding?
Sounds great.
Certainly open to having one sooner than that if there are developments or if there are things that you feel would be useful. But that works for me, and we will decide on Friday at 2 unless we have anything different. And Amanda can put out the same kind of call for questions in advance or things like that and publicize it. We've had steadily about between 35 and 40 people online watching. So that's terrific. We're dealing with we're dealing with what? A reasonable percentage of music majors.
I think a lot of people might watch it back too if they can, who have like other classes or meetings right now.
Right. That could be too.
Within the clarinet studio, I know we have quite a few. Have you guys reached out to those people who are student teaching, either next semester or currently?
Yeah, the current people, there were guidelines put out by the School of Ed, and Dr. Moe has been in contact with them. And they basically, I think, are, for want of a better term, they're kind of pulling the plug on the thing now and saying, look, you've had good experiences. We're way past the state mandates with respect to number of contact hours that are part of your licensure and so forth and so on. So I think they're basically saying all good. With respect to next semester, that'd be something just to be in contact with your advisors about and how things are shaping. But I think that everybody is in all good mode for this semester. Okay, well, let's pull the plug on this then. You all should congratulate Amanda and Maggie, who were the ones who initially came up with this idea of doing this kind of thing. I really think it was a terrific way to get with you all and see you, if not in person, this way. But the last message I'll leave you with is that I think we're all in. We will come through this stronger, and we will learn a lot. And in the end result of life and musicianship, it won't be that bad a thing. I just hope everybody comes through safe and will be positive about it. Okay? Feel free to write me or let me know anything that you want to do, or any of the staff people, and I will give you at least an email synopsis through Music Folks of any of the things that get decided today in faculty. How's that? Okay, everybody, click your buy button.
Yeah.
For the staff who are still here, we'll